Well, they say that you're a fool. You believe in magic.
I'm Paranormal Pete, and I'm on a journey to seek answers to the questions that have crossed all of our minds. What happens to us when we die? Is there an afterlife? I'm a regular guy who discovered the gift of psychic mediumship in my 30s. My passion for history and the unknown have put me right here, right now. My mantra for anything paranormal is, we don't know much and anything is possible. Join me as we find our way through the stories, evidence, and experiences of the paranormal and beyond in search of answers, even if that leads to more questions. Are you with me?
Some hocus pocus filling up inside. And I think somebody's making me.
Welcome to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Peter Orbea. We're on WLTK-DB.com. It's kind of glary back there, but there's the show banner, station banner. Be sure you check out the website, and thanks to everybody each week. Last week we had a lot of new people watching the show, which was awesome. And so you can join the conversation tonight by wherever you're watching from, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all kinds of places. You can just type in the comment box. We will see it. If you are on Facebook and you'd like your name to be visible, you'll want to go to the StreamYard Facebook page and allow StreamYard to show your name while you're commenting. So welcome to the show. Gosh, I can't believe January is just about over here. Time is just continuing to fly by. We're on episode 91 this week, and we've got a very special guest, a good friend of mine. We do tours, we do conferences, we can commiserate on all of it. It's great. But we've got special guest Rocky Smith, who's the coordinator of the Oregon Ghost Conference that's upcoming. So we'll be talking about that, but also want to talk to him about his business, Haunted Oregon City, and talk about Oregon City and some of the haunts there. And I've got a story I wanted to share about an experience at the Oregon Ghost Conference last year that I had. It was pretty cool. Trying to figure it out still, but big shout out to station owner, host of Haunted Voices, Todd Bates. They're at a big winter storm right now, so hope they're doing okay. So you got me on the ones and twos tonight. So hopefully this whole thing runs smoothly. And if you like the intro music, that's my band, Steady Rock Cosmonaut. Look us up anywhere you listen to music. Just type in Steady Rock Cosmonaut, and you'll find us there. Hopefully you'll enjoy the music and put it in your playlist. I've got some more ghost walks and special investigations coming up right here in Port Gamble, Washington. If you don't know where that's at, it's on Puget Sound on the west side of the sound across from Seattle. So really neat old historic town. I love doing the tours and the public investigations. It's a lot of fun. Whether you're a beginner or you've done quite a few investigations, it's a lot of fun. Had a really fun one this last weekend and had special guests join me, investigators Mary Bethune and Linda Myers, good friends of the show here. I've had both of them on the show. So it was a cool experience for everybody to see, participate and see kind of how different people investigate. And it was a lot of fun. Seemed like a quiet night, but those sometimes are the best nights when you go through your data and look for any evidence of the paranormal. So I got those coming up. You can find all the upcoming dates and tickets right here on my hat, portgambleparanormal.com. Check that out. As I mentioned earlier, the Oregon Ghost Conference is coming up. It's coming up March 24th through the 26th, and it's at OregonGhostConference.com. There's also a Facebook page for it as well. But if you're looking for a new conference to go to out on the West Coast, you haven't been to this one yet, it's a lot of fun. You can learn a lot of different things. I've met really great people there, and I'm excited to be a speaker this year, and I'll have a vendor booth there all weekend. So be sure you stop by and say hi. That's down in Seaside, Oregon, coming up. But we'll be talking to Rocky about that a little bit more. He's the organizer of there's also the OC Paracon coming up down in Anaheim first weekend in October. So that's ocparacon.com. And you might wonder why I'm always talking about conferences every week on the show, but it's because they're a great piece of the paranormal community. It's a great place to meet other like-minded people or to share your stories and not have everybody say, "Oh, you're crazy." So you can find people to relate with, share experiences, and sometimes it really helps just to talk about it. And if that's one great thing out of the conferences, that's a huge thing. So that's why I'm always talking about upcoming conferences. Anybody out there listening, if you have a different conference that you go to that you really like, put it up in the comments there and we'll give it a shout out. And then, of course, Veterans Day weekend this year up in Port Gamble will be the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. And I believe it's the 14th annual conference there. If you love the station here, you're gonna get some station goods. We have a station shop. There's sweatshirts, coffee cups, you name it, you can get it. Show your love for the station as we are growing. There's now 25 shows on the station, ranging from true crime to self-help. And I mean, it's amazing the amount of content that we're putting out on the station here. So if you are on the run all the time, you might want to download the station app. Just go to your app store and type in WLTK-DB and you'll find it there. You can catch live shows, you can catch archive shows, you can do a lot with it. I use it to listen to shows sometimes. So I'm on the go a lot, so it's very handy. So be sure to go download the station app. And if you love this show, like this show, mildly like it, whatever, I guarantee you're going to love other shows on the station here. So it's all at WLTK-DB.com. Like I said, there's 25 shows now. It's pretty incredible. Wow, it's been a week already. Rocky and I were talking before the show. It's been a week already. And he's planning a ghost conference on top of everything else he does. But I met Rocky at the Oregon Ghost Conference in 2013, and he was so welcoming and kind, and has been ever since. And enjoy when we have him up at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. He's a historian. He's a school teacher. He's a city councilman. He does a lot for Oregon City. He's integral in the preservation of the historic Ermatinger House in Oregon City, which is now open to the public. And then he helped start this Oregon Ghost Conference years ago, and it just keeps growing and growing every year. So he's doing something right. But let's give a big show welcome to Oregon Ghost Conference coordinator, owner of Haunted Oregon City, Rocky Smith.
Hi, Pete.
Hey, Rocky, thanks for coming on. I know you're super busy.
Yeah,
Like,
I've been sending out, emails and contracts all evening. So yeah, back
well,
to it
I got
after
mine
this.
back. I sent mine
Oh, you
back.
did good. Good. So we can announce that Pete's going to be a speaker. I think you already jumped the gun and announced that. You spoiled the.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know there was a buildup for it.
Well, and your email said, "Oh, I guess I'm kicking this thing off." There is a little catch there because the Oregon Ghost Conference kind of flip-flops. It's always around spring break, but sometimes it's the opening weekend of spring break, and sometimes it's the end of spring break.
Yeah.
It always happens to be, I think, right before Washington spring break. It's always
Yeah.
kind of weird. But the reason that I think I'm putting you kind of for the forefront is because the Ghost Conference in Oregon's Ghost Conference in Seaside is gonna kick off the week starting spring break, which means I work all day Friday.
Ah, nice.
So I will be showing up to my party as it's already begun. So
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of have Kristen and I thought, well, Pete can kind of do it a little start off because he knows what that's about. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's my planning and behind the scenes.
Everybody, you're getting a look behind the
Yeah,
stage curtain
yeah,
here at
planning.
what goes on to a ghost conference, what goes into it. There's
Yeah,
so
it's a lot.
it is a lot, and the conference it just grows every year. With the getting new speakers in that haven't been there before. Talk about a little bit about why it's you seem to do really well with getting new speakers, and why is that something that's important for you in the conference?
You know, I wanted it always the conference to draw people in from all over the place and also a wide variety. And I think what's really kind of unique, the Oregon Ghost Conference is so different than the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and there's so many elements of each that I love. But they each have their own kind of oddities. The fact that the Oregon Ghost Conference is in Seaside over spring break kind of opens the door to a broader public than someone going to Port Gamble necessarily for the Port Gamble Ghost Conference.
Right.
There are people that come through Port Gamble, every day as tourists and probably drop into the conference. But um, this idea that trying to have enough things going on that was with a wide variety that someone from just off the street on spring break might pop in and enjoy some of it. And that's been kind of a struggle because you have to balance, the paranormal experts, we'll put that in quotes, and the just general exhibits or vendors that might draw a family that's just on spring break wanting to know what's going on. um, and the other thing is, I try to, we have regulars that have come back for many, many years as speakers, and some that rotate every couple of years. But I always try to change it up every year. Usually, each year with the gallery reading or the evening event, we try to do something different. And I
Mhm.
will well, I can't give too big a hints. There's some big announcements coming in the next couple days, as soon as I get these papers signed. But we have a brand new main event this year that we've never done before. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Some new locations. But in terms of speakers, just trying to draw in more varied speakers and varied topics. And I think we've done a pretty good job of rotating that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a balance for
It's
sure.
yeah, it's been great to see over the years, and I'm always honored to be able to speak there. So I hope I can keep coming back. No pressure. Um,
That's one of the things we debate about every year, whether or not we're going to let Pete come back. So it was a
I
close.
knew it. Well, I appreciate
So
it.
so far you're welcome.
So far. Oh man, you speak in good terms there, almost like you're into politics or something. Uh,
Well, here's the thing, Pete. If we don't invite you to ours, I figure we're not invited to yours, and I'd kind of like to come to Park Gamble. So
oh,
there's,
you
there's
guys are always you're always welcome there. Uh, yeah, and it's great to have you up there, and what you mentioned there's the conferences are so different, but they're the same sort of I think it's the same sort of goals where you're trying to get people to come in and learn something
yeah,
and have some fun. And so I think there's a lot of similarities that, kind of make it, the conferences are like cousins, in a way
yeah,
with the feel and everything. And um so you've always got a ton of vendors. And I think I'm going to be in Readers Row this year, which I think I applied for that. Very excited for that. Talk a little bit about you know how how many not like a number, but how many vendors, what's Readers Row. Talk a little bit about how you set up all the vendors and who and kind of how you choose them.
yeah. So basically, we have a variety of different vendors. When we started out, a lot of the vendors were just paranormal groups. And so it was more information based and a place where people could get information on various paranormal groups. And that's still the case today.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to reach out to more vendors in terms of selling products. There was a ton of Halloween-oriented events this year where I would come across artists or different crafters and various salespeople that have just amazing creepy stuff to sell. And so I think that adds to it, and that also helps get the general public off the street and seaside to come into the conference.
Right.
So it's a mix of sales and it's a mix of paranormal groups, but um, the real interesting piece of it is that vendors area, as you know, is right in the main ballroom or the main conference room, which we've always kind of struggled with to some degree. Some vendors want to be in the room where the speakers are because if they're a paranormal group having a table, they want to hear the speakers. Then some of the salespeople or vendors that want to sell items or readers, doing psychic readings or palm readings or anything else, tarot readings, want to be kind of in a smaller section or a quieter section. So when the convention center added on to the building, they added on a lot bigger space where we can kind of compartmentalize or at least section off areas based on what the vendors want. And that allows to give a little bit of a different area to people that are doing readings, and allows the vendors to kind of pick the area that's best for them. We have always done pretty well with vendors. It's been hard to build our vendors and our exhibitors back up from COVID.
Yeah.
And last year we had kind of a step down. Last year was our first year back after the 2 years off. And so we saw a decrease in our vendors. I think we're kind of at the same place right now as we were. I'm hoping to pick up more vendors, but the other cool thing last year that allowed us to do, having the extra space, we were able to bring in that mobile museum from California,
Yeah.
and which was really cool with artifacts and more exhibits. So whatever space we don't fill with vendors, we'll have filled with exhibits or different attractions. So
Yeah, that was a cool addition last year, and it filled it in real nice, and it was weird and creepy stuff to look at.
did you go in there? It's super creepy. Some of it was really creepy.
Yeah, I walked through and I made it about halfway, and then I was like feeling some weird stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get out of here. It's kind of like sitting across from Ross Allison, a ghost booth when he brings all the dolls.
Right.
And how that just creeps me the hell out every year. Well, so so Rocky and I both put together these conferences, and a lot of people, I don't think see what all goes into it. This blood, sweat, and tears really goes into it. And we got Kristen checking in here, Mr. Creepy.
Oh,
yeah,
don't let her start. Thanks. She'll tell you
Thanks,
all about
Kristen. Okay, that's no
Mr.
more on
Creepy,
Mr.
yeah.
Creepy. Anybody?
just for everyone, she's talking about Ross's doll, not about me or Peter.
or Ross. Say hey wherever you're watching from out there. Say hey, we'll give you a shout out. So all this stuff goes into it. About halfway through, it's exhausting. You just got to kind of, you just truck on through it, right? You just keep going. But at the end of it, when you're just dead, exhausted, don't want to talk to anybody, probably want to be left alone, what's the thing that you go, I loved this? What is the thing that, at the end of it, when you're just totally exhausted, what makes it all worthwhile for you?
Well, I think you know the answer to this, but I think what really shocks me every year, and some of it's actually listening to people like you on your radio show, or people like Nicole Strickland, or all these people that are doing their own shows. And frequently you say, oh, I met this person, this guest at the Oregon Ghost Conference, or I'll listen to Nicole's show, and she'll say the same thing. You underestimate the impact that you have on building a community. Like, you plan an event, you want it to be successful, and that's a lot in itself, but you don't always think about until after the event the impact that that really has. And you I really still don't understand it fully, the power of it.
Yeah.
Um, and we've seen this so much where, okay, there's two groups or three groups that have never met each other. They meet at the Ghost Conference and then they collaborate and make a movie,
Yeah.
or they come together at a Ghost Conference and they meet up and they start a radio show or they start a project or they write a book. That all comes back to that.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, okay, well, what if this community didn't exist? What if we hadn't have created these events? Would any of these projects have been born?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that by doing the event, it just, that we're responsible necessarily for all these projects, but it creates an energy that allows people to share and get to know each other. And it just spirals beyond that. Like, I mean, think about it. Just at the Oregon Ghost Conference, we've premiered 2 movies. We're going to have more online. I know of at least 2 or 3 movies that are being filmed right now that I'm sure that we'll be able to show
Awesome.
in the future. I mean, I've had people writing books about their experiences at Oregon Ghost Conference, and we just know all these projects and even teams that have spurred from this kind of stuff. So I think that's the thing, that when you're done and you say, wow, this is important for people, and it's
Yeah.
important to keep doing it.
That's like the perfect answer. And I feel the same way. And specifically with the Oregon Ghost Conference, I have my experience that I had at the first time I came down when it was in Oregon City, and where I got a reading from Seth Michael,
Right.
and Molly, my wife Molly's coming, or they get a reading and discover they're a psychic medium. Changed my life.
Right.
It totally changed my
Right.
life, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have gone there. And so I think you said it perfect. That underestimate the impact, and I
Yeah.
feel the same way. And each and every person has their own experience at the conference that stays with them. Making lifelong friends. Everything. So there's such a power to that. Like you said, of creating an energy. I think it's good for the paranormal field in general when you can get people together like this, whether they're, you know, veteran investigators, they're into it, or they're just maybe curious about it. It's you can have such an impact. And so what an awesome answer. We've got a couple of people checking in. Mary, good friend of the show. Hey, Pete and Rocky, thanks for watching. And someone Holly. Hi, Rocky and Pete, enjoying
Hi,
the
Holly.
show. Thanks for watching, you guys. And thanks to Molly as well. Well, I wanted to share. So at the conference last year, there was a new look. I think it was new last year, right? The Starry Night Inn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, cool little place to stay. I didn't just stay there, but when I was going through it and investigating, I was like, oh, this is really cool. So that was an added location, and I attended one of the investigations there, and I just shared this story. I was on a show last Friday, but it made me think, yeah, you know what? That was a really weird and cool experience. And so I wanted
Right.
to share that. And I think I shared it with you, but you were like, minus 2 hours of sleep in a couple days. And
I'm kind
but
of there now, Pete. I'm kind of there right now.
all right, sending you good energy here.
Yeah.
So I went to attend this investigation, and this is a 2-story place, and so I was upstairs, and I was hanging out with Jason Hassler from Big River Paranormal. We were kind of just chatting, and it was kind of time to switch floors, kind of get everybody into a different part of the location, stretch your legs a little bit. And I was standing at one end of this hallway upstairs, and a group of ladies opened the door at the other end of the hallway and came out, and they were all kind of lined up in the doorway. There was 4 of them, and then there was a 5th one sitting on the end of the bed, kind of looking, bending over so she could see everybody that they were talking to. And so they came out and said, oh, we got felt like this. We got a couple EMF, readings. And then they shut the door. And I said, wait, what about the fifth person back there on the bed? And they're like, what? There's only 4 of us in here. And I mean, this person looks solid to me. And so I went in there, of course. I think Jason and I both went in there and looking around, and it did feel tingly in there. But I know I saw another person behind the investigators. I swear was one of the investigators, and they just like shut the door on her. And I'm like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, there was just 4 of us in there. I'm like, no, there. Who's the other person? And so I after, it's one of those where you start thinking about it and going, well, that doesn't explain that. So I don't know what I saw, but it was a lady, looked to be kind of younger, and had like round glasses on, round frames, and kind of light colored hair, and was just like listening to the conversation. So I don't know. I just thought that was really cool. I don't know if it was just something I saw psychically or if she was there physically in some sort of sense. But it was a neat experience.
Pete, was that was the room? If you're going up the stairs, that would be the far room to the right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in the room that was on the left side of the hallway, and,
Yeah.
looking down the hallway, and I could see right into the room. Just looked like another person sitting there on the bed, leaning over to listen.
So the Starry Night, that whole thing came about in terms of using that building, mainly because, um, you know, well, you don't have this problem in Port Campbell, Pete, but if you're doing a ghost conference in a city that you don't have a fair amount of knowledge of and control of in terms of the buildings and uses and that,
Yeah.
um, finding a place to do investigations is not easy. Um, and so we've had a couple key places in Seaside to do investigations, but we always want to add more because the investigations are kind of one of the highlights of our events. And so the Starry Night was I don't know how we came across that, but Starry Night is basically an old Victorian home from the early 1900s in Seaside, um, and has rooms that they rent within the house, but then they also have cabins built along the side. So we obviously, as a core staff or core committee for the Ghost Conference, need a place to stay. Um, and since all of us are basically in our own rooms, you either rent a whole lot of hotel rooms or you try to figure out a more realistic situation. And so
Right.
this was good for some of us to stay in the cabins, but then it allowed us to use the house for an event that could actually help, pay for the cost of some of the hotel rooms. But
Yeah.
what was really interesting to me is I met the owner. We became like best friends. Like well, sorry, Holly, not best friends, but close. uh, and the owners at the Starry Night are amazing, and we really, enjoyed getting to know them. And they were very much interested in finding out more about the history of the house. They've had, some interesting things go on in the house, but they really had never investigated it or never tried to understand the history of the place. And it's been
Right.
hard for me, but I did find out a little history of the house, and I'm still trying to find more. But it looks to me that that house was actually moved and is not wasn't actually built in that location. So then you have to say, are the experiences in the house part of the house that moved with it, or was there something else there? And all those kind of questions that we ask when we, try to investigate a place. But
Yeah.
so the owners at the Starry Night had had a couple weird things happen, but they really wanted us to come in without a lot of knowledge and have these investigations as part of the Ghost Conference to see if anyone picked things up. And actually, as you know, a lot of people picked things up in those upper rooms. To me,
Yeah.
the middle room at the top of the stairs and the end room that you're talking about were the rooms that really kind of stood out to me. The basement was very much active too, but we also believe there's a lot of EMF and a lot of other
Yeah.
energy down there that's causing other things. So that's still, it'll be nice to go back again this year and have a second chance at that and see if we can start connecting the dots between multiple people having similar experiences. So
Yeah. Yeah, and especially like with the EMF, check all those areas again, see if it's the same, see if anything's changed. And yeah, that's awesome. It was a really fun place to investigate. We're gonna take a quick station break here. When we come back, we'll talk bridge tender a little bit, and then I wanted to also get into your business of the Haunted Oregon City and all the events that you've got coming up. You are always seem so busy over there with that, and so we're going to get into that a little bit, maybe talk a little about the haunts in Oregon City. And so we'll be right back here on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbay, with very special guest Rocky Smith from the Oregon Ghost Conference. We'll be right back here on WLTK-DB.com.
Heard a girl scream down here.
Are you kidding me right now?
I'm listening.
Doing very well. Thank you so much.
All right, we're back here on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbay. We're talking with Rocky Smith, coordinator of the Oregon Ghost Conference, coming up March 24th through 26th. Mark your calendars, get your hotel rooms before they sell out, that sort of thing. You've got a lot of good deals, a lot of places there. So it's really easy to find lodging, and it's all pretty close to the convention center. And you can find all that at OregonGhostConference.com. You guys have done an awesome job every year getting lodging specials, which is really important for everyone that's traveling. And have you found, I want to ask you, have you found, I don't know if you can track it like through tickets, but like, are most people from Oregon, Washington, California? What's kind of your demographic? Is it kind of, do you find what I've been finding more is there's definitely way more people than outside the county here that come to the Port Gamble conference. The
Right.
majority of the people are coming from out of the area. What have you found?
Pre-COVID, I was kind of shocked because we were getting people from, Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, so pretty much the entire West Coast.
Yeah.
There was an occasion where we would have one or two people fly in from East Coast or even from out of the country, some of our friends that have come in.
Hmm.
But I would say, pretty much, very strong West Coast. So not just Oregon, Washington. That's still consistent. I mean, I think we're still getting people from Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho.
Yeah.
But I think, people are staying a little closer to home, this last year.
Yeah.
So, and especially remember, we opened the Ghost Conference on the weekend that the mask mandate lifted and that everything was chaos. And so,
I remember those days. Yeah.
I can't really use last year as a milestone for any past. And so, really the only history that we know of is 2 or 3 years ago. So we're
Yeah.
in some ways, we're reinventing and restarting. Of course, we haven't started selling tickets yet, but we can track all where everyone's
Yeah.
from. But I know in the past we've drawn people from multiple states all over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting how far people will go for something, and I hope it just keeps growing. Your conference, Oregon Ghost Conference, and the Port Gamble one too, as far as where people are coming from. It brings different perspectives, different energies in, and so I always find that interesting. Where people are coming from, but then again, I have a background in marketing, so
Right, but Pete, I think it also says something for the fact that if people if these conferences in Oregon and Washington are drawing people from multiple states away, then they don't have something like that in their state, or they don't have something to the level that some of these events are. And I've tried to research paranormal conventions across the United States, and
yeah,
some of them, are there 1 or 2 years and they disappear. Trying to keep an event, as you know, going for a decade through pandemics and through everything, that's not easy.
yeah,
And so, you know, building a successful event is tough to keep it outlasting all of that. And so,
yeah.
I think that's pretty amazing that we've managed to do that and keep that going. So,
And keep it going and keep it growing as
yeah,
well each
yeah.
year. Yeah, it's really cool. Well, let's talk about Bridge Tender a little bit, which is one of the other location spots, the annual favorite of the conference out there in Seaside. Tell us a little bit about what you think of the Bridge Tender as far as the haunted side of it and what you've seen people experience.
You know, the bridge tender has just always been a special place for us for Seaside, just because the owners and the past owners have been so generous in sharing their stories and opening their place up to us. Um, when I first went into the bridge tender, I definitely felt that there was a presence there. I definitely, in fact, um, that video that we did on the Oregon Ghost Conference, which North, oh gosh, I can't remember that video that we did. Was we had an experience during filming, and actually a lot of people have had experiences during filming there, with the restrooms or the upstairs. Um, but I think more, and so we've all had experiences there, and we've all been creeped out there. I got super emotional in one of the investigations where we were filming for, Seth Michaels' movie. That was another one that we had, some film crews there where, I really understood that, okay, these kids are here. And these little kids, as a teacher, anytime I go to a haunted place, kid spirits attract to me. Like, they follow me around. And when you feel that there's someone standing there, and then you actually tap into it and you actually can feel the emotion that they're feeling, um,
Yeah.
especially with kids, it really bothers me. I had that same situation at Preston Castle, where a little kid kind of wanted to go, leave the castle and go home with somebody or leave that place. And it was, um, so there's some moments in the bridge tender like that where I've really tapped into something and really felt like, okay, they're there. Um, I really wish we could find more history. That's the thing. There's such a
Yeah.
mixed history in Seaside where we talk about the history of the city having the fire in 1912. And so as you know, in terms of history, people take known events or known tragedies and try to link the ghosts to that. And it's not necessarily that that's the reason they're there.
Yeah.
And so trying to sift that out has been a challenge, but it's a very active place. And the thing that I love the best about the bridge tender is absolutely no one is ever allowed in that building upstairs unless we're there for the ghost conference. That's the only way that they allow people up there. And the past owners kind of joked about it. They would have people call the bridge tender and say, "Hey, when can we go upstairs?" And they said, "Well, you have to call Rocky." And I said, "Well, why are you having them call me? You're the owner of the building." And they've kind of kept, the new owners have kind of kept that tradition too. So
Yeah. It shows the trust. It shows
Yeah,
that
it's
they trust you, and it says a lot about the people that come to the conference that there's continued trust, because that often gets broken easily in other places,
well,
by people.
someone was saying that before because remember we go into multiple buildings on that block, one of which is a grocery store, like a
Yeah,
little mini mart, where they were open and they let people in, and product was there, and so people sign contracts, and we have enough people there to help out and assist with people. But it's for someone to open up any business to the public and let them come in off hours in a situation like that is pretty amazing, and they've always been super supportive.
yeah. Have you found, because you've continued this conference there in Seaside, one, I got to think, you're doing good for the lodgers there, the lodging establishments. But have more people, are you finding anyone else that's kind of opening up, like maybe they have a business there? Is it easier to talk to people about Ghost and Seaside more so than a few years ago?
Absolutely. And we know that by working like it. One of the reasons I know everything about the history of Oregon City is because I've lived here my whole life. you know, it's now been what, 7 years we've been back and forth in Seaside. So I'm starting to now, when I get to Seaside and I walk around Seaside, people are like, they know who I am just because of the Ghost Conference. And
Yeah,
last year, we started noticing that, okay, we walk down the street, and even though the bookstore is not part of the Ghost Conference, all the windows in the bookstore are ghost books for that weekend. Or the coffee shop down the street has, the controversial coffee in Seaside. They created specialty drinks for the
that's
whole weekend
right.
at their shop. And those are not things that we are calling people to ask for. They're doing it because they want to be a part of the event. And I've not seen that in past communities that I've done events in.
That's
So
really cool.
to have a community kind of take ownership of an event, and really, and it actually last year we got new ghost stories for the first time. People were sharing ghost stories on the tours, and businesses are starting to tell their stories a little bit more, which the first couple of years was not happening.
Yeah.
Um, and we're gonna be investigating, Pete. I'm almost positive a brand new location this year at
Ooh,
Seaside, and I'm really excited about it. So we
nice.
should be able to talk about that pretty soon. So we should have a brand new location in Seaside to investigate this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
and it's so cool that people are opening up. It just, I think it takes time for them to feel comfortable, and so that's great for the conference to, have the support like that in the community, and they see what you're doing, and it speaks a lot to the conference and the kind of, um, you know, your integrity of the conference. And so really cool. That's awesome. So everyone stay tuned to OregonGhostConference.com or the Facebook page, where you'll see when they're going to make announcements, and also when they start selling tickets. Be sure and get investigation tickets early. Be sure and get tour tickets early as well. The tours are a lot of fun. I've been able to help out with those the past few years. It's a lot of fun. It's fun for me to learn the history of somewhere else, and then
Right.
every year it's like, you see something that you didn't see before, or you have a realization of something that's odd, or there's another story to tell. So it's a lot of fun. So if you're planning on coming to the conference, make sure you get those tour tickets and investigation tickets. It only furthers your experience of the Ghost Conference. And Kristen's got the link put up here. So OregonGhostConference.com. Well, I want to talk about Haunted Oregon City, your business. You've also got Northwest Ghost Tours. Tell us a little bit about Haunted Oregon City, where it is, and kind of how you started it.
Well, so I've been doing ghost tours in Oregon City for about 20 years, and I've learned the history of Oregon City by living here, kind of living and breathing it. And I now have 4 different walking tours of Oregon City, 4 regular tours of Oregon City, and my
Cool.
season is basically my season is basically after the Ghost Conference through Christmas, and then I go on a cycle. So basically, from Christmas on, I'm focused on the Ghost Conference until March, and then I usually start tours in June or July. I'm hoping to start Oregon City tours as early as May or June this year,
Awesome.
because they're getting more and more popular. But 4 different regular tours in different neighborhoods, and then I have a little shop downtown, which is really only open when I have my tours schedule. My hope is someday to retire from my real job, and maybe that'll be my full-time job. But right now, my shop is open for special events on the weekends and things when I am doing events downtown, or as a little gift shop for when I have my tours. So I have a little shop on Main Street in Oregon City.
Well, I hope you can keep, working to getting that open more and have that be more of
Yeah.
what you're doing. I would totally love to do tours full time. That would be
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
for sure.
And then Kristen, thank you for
Well, thank you,
Kristen's a
Kristen.
big part of the Oregon Ghost Conference here. She's helping us out. She knows I'm like trying to run everything, I think. So she's helping out. HauntedOregonCity.com.
She's always doing the social media stuff. For
Yeah.
Ghost Conference, so.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I'll leave that up for a little bit for people to write it down or go search it.
Now,
So
so that's my website for my tours in Oregon City. But any events that we do throughout the year that are in the off season, I'm always putting stuff up there about the things that we're doing beyond
yeah.
the tours. So
Well, yeah. What do you got coming up? Now that it's going to be getting close to your season starting, what do you got coming up? What's in store for people?
well, actually, in the midst of all this planning, we have this friend Jeff Davis.
Yes.
So Jeff is actually going to be. Jeff has a booth this coming weekend, the 27th and 28th, at the Sasquatch or Squatch Fest, which is
Up in Kelso. Yeah.
So Friday after school, I'm going to trek up to Kelso. So I'll be with Jeff hanging out there Friday, Saturday, and then I've been partnering with Jeff, been helping Jeff with the Paranormal Pub that we do in Vancouver that he started a while back. So I'm really excited. Joss and Monique Rose, who Joss is a former student of mine, they have a podcast called Fright Life, which is really incredible.
Yes.
And so they are going to be our guest at the Paranormal Pub February 12th, and that is this Sunday, February 12th, and we meet at the Underbar in downtown Vancouver on Broadway. Usually people show up around 3 o'clock, and then the program starts about 4. So we'll be there on February 12th.
Cool.
And then this is another Jeff Davis thing.
Okay.
Well, Jeff has gotten, Jeff got a call actually, and a couple of us then started getting emails. So I always do a booth at Rose City Comic Con. And then separate from Rose City Comic Con was Wizard World. But Wizard World finally has changed its name. So it's called Fan Expo. And Fan Expo is coming up February 17th through the 19th at the Oregon Convention Center. It's a huge event. That's fanexpohq.com. So I will actually be doing a presentation at Fan Expo about haunted Oregon and the Northwest haunted history. Jeff is working with a couple of us and himself, putting together a couple panels. So I'm pretty sure Jeff's going to have a booth at Fan Expo. I'm pretty sure Oregon Ghost Conference is going to be there as a booth, but we'll also have some paranormal panels and different things going on. So people can. I don't think their full schedule is up yet, but it's because he's still in the. I feel better because Fan Expo is still planning their scheduling, and that's like February 17th.
Less than a month, yeah.
So when Kristen's asking me, have you got the schedule done? I'm like, hey, we still got till March. We got a long time. So anyway, probably in the next week, you'll see the full schedule at Fan Expo, but I'm excited to go out there. I think that'll be fun. It'll give us a good opportunity to promote the Ghost Conference right before before it hits off. So
Yeah, and then you also get to talk about haunted locations.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
the Northwest and all the haunts. Oh, that's really cool. Well, yeah, congrats on that. Yeah, it's. Oh, we got another person checking in here. Oh, Holly's got the link. She's on this one. FanExpoHQ.com. Yeah, check that out, folks. I'll leave that up there for a second. Got another friend of the show, Jackie Campbell, checking in. And guess what? She's going to be my guest on February 7th. So I'll be looking for her to be on the show February 7th. They met her at the OC Paracon. So welcome, Jackie, to the show. Well, that's a lot of stuff you got going on. What's out of your 4 tours? I don't know if I want to put you on the spot. Which one do you like doing the best?
Pete, so do you get that question in Port Campbell? But do you only have one tour?
I'm only doing one tour.
Okay, well, yeah. So then you're like, oh well, this is the best because it's the only one. I really can't pick. There's some times of the year where one's more interesting than the other, either more active.
Okay. Sure.
They're all so unique, and the newest one that I started within my Christmas one, I didn't even count that. I have a whole separate Christmas tour. So I have 4 regular ghost tours in Oregon City, and then I have a Christmas tour in December. But they each have taken on their own kind of theme and their own kind of story. So they're so different. The newest tour for my ghost tours has been the Oregon Trail Tour, which is actually kind of sneakily named because Oregon City has always touted its Oregon Trail history, but not ever really opened the door in talking about the native history of this place. And
Okay.
so I really actually have created a tour that focuses more on some of the native stories, some of the history that we don't talk about much in Oregon City, and mix that with the Oregon Trail history and kind of balance that. And like, what is the cost of solely telling this one story, and what has that done in the history of this city, and how has it affected it? And I really think that some of the natural disasters or things that have affected our town or tragedies, I think are directly connected to the history of the past, and kind of, trying to, trying to address the history of the past so that somehow we get beyond it. So I've kind of been really intrigued by that because as I started creating that tour, there were so many connections that most people would say, well, that's just a coincidence. I love putting connections to things. And that tour, where you find that every time, where a building would be built by a pioneer settler and then the next year it would flood, or
Right.
this would happen and the next year this would happen. And it's almost like history has put our city in check in some occasions to go back and account for its true history. And so that has been fascinating researching some of that.
Yeah, that's
And then the Christmas tour has kind of evolved into its own thing too, where almost all of Oregon City's landmarks opened on Christmas, and Oregon City's birthday is Christmas Eve. And so you start looking into these things and you realize there's all these connections that no one knows about, and then the tours kind of take on their own persona. And so every time you start a new one, I just love it because you're creating it and you're making these connections and you're really writing a story from your perspective. So it's a lot of fun.
And plus, you get a, get your history, your passion for history out in it too. You're doing this research, and
Right. It's
when
a
you're
research that I want to do, but it pays off into creating, a new way to share it with people.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this, since you've got the whole city there with so much history. What's like okay, let's say you've thought of a new tour, you've heard a couple of different things. Oh, this might be a cool connection. Where do you start your research? If it's something that you weren't already familiar with, so this is for anybody out there that's trying to, do some research on historical locations or wherever. Where's often the first place you go?
Well, a lot of times I start with just some story that someone sent me, as one place. But and whether or not I schedule this, last year I actually taught a class about researching, historic properties and how to research places. If I have the ability to schedule myself a way to teach that class again, I'll do it. Um, I mean, it's a whole list of things. One of the best resources anymore, especially in Oregon, and I think to some degree in Washington, is a lot of the old newspapers that you used to have to go to the library and go through microfiche and look through all the stuff. A
Yeah.
lot of our old newspapers have been scanned in and digitized into PDFs. So in Oregon, you can go on to find those very easily. I think it's Oregon Online. It's the University of Oregon put this whole thing together. There's some grants that were together. I don't have the link off the top of my head, but so it just in Oregon City from the 1850s to the early 1900s, there was over 5 newspapers in this town.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Wow.
and how hard it was to research newspapers before, but now that it's all digitized, I could spend days and days and days looking through these papers, and you're finding stories from the 1800s, 1850s, or the 1890s that you've never heard before. And I know a lot about Oregon City's history, but I'm finding stories that I've never heard of before, and I'm taking those and then looking through the city's archives or the library, or one of the things that I love to look through, which people forget about. I work at a high school. Our high school started, in the 1850s, and we have
Whoa.
yearbooks going back to the early 1900s. Well,
That's awesome.
if you live in a town, if you live in a town your whole life and generations of your family lived in that town, then every picture of every person is in those yearbooks. Not only that, but snapshots of the schools and the community at that time. And it's so easy to forget how much of a resource that is. You can go
Wow.
into these yearbooks and find images or things that you may not see in the newspaper, or unless you stumble across someone's private photos collection somewhere. But so those are some of the things I talk about when I've taught the class in the past. So I might try to do that at the Ghost Conference. If there's an empty spot and an empty spot where I can take a break, I usually try to do it.
We can come up to Port Gamble and teach it this year if you want.
I will think about it. I always think that's a great idea. And then how I am when I do presentations or classes, I stress out about it and I go through it 50 times. So and if I'm at Port Gamble, I'm sitting at my booth stressing out about it. And I don't, and then it's like, am I having fun doing this? So last year,
don't think of it as stress, Rocky. Think of it as you care about it energy.
Yeah. Well, for sure. But there's times that I enjoy just being at Port Gamble to see the people that
Sure.
I don't get to see when I'm running around the Ghost Conference, and actually enjoy,
Yep.
having fun. So
Same thing. Yeah. That's interesting about the high school. I totally had thought about that, but that's almost like a visual census.
Oh, for sure. And especially for someone like me that's lived in this town, I'm going through these yearbooks. I'm like, I know that family's name. I recognize this, and
Yeah.
or family members or past people that I know. And newspapers kind of the same way. So there's a lot of resources like that. And once you have, like, for a house, like the Starry Night, if you can find the name of a person that used to live there, then you now have a name to start looking through newspapers or to start looking through other things. For instance, the Ermatinger House, we finally found a newspaper article that tells us exactly who the steamboat captain was.
Ah,
But it's
Let's-
taken 20 years. It's taken 20 years to realize, okay, this folklore about the house is true, and here's the man, and here's his name, and we know it.
that's awesome when
Yeah.
you can validate something after all those years. Amazing stuff. And we're out of time. And Lawrence checking in here. Hey, thanks for watching. Rocky, so everybody watching out there, we're gonna have Rocky on about mid-March to talk about the conference and all the details. And Rocky him and his team will be making some big announcements soon. So again, make sure you stay tuned to OregonGhostConference.com or the Facebook page for Oregon Ghost Conference. But we're going to have you back on mid-March so that we can talk about all those cool details and fun things that you've got coming up. So just know I was one of the first to get my contract back.
Yeah, they're coming in, so
I know.
I expect within by this weekend and next week, that this next weekend and the coming week we'll be announcing a lot of things. So
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time. Like I said, I know you're super busy, but always appreciate you to come on the show and appreciate everything you do for the paranormal community and the Oregon Ghost Conference, and really all the whole community that's out here in the West. Keep it up, man, and I look forward to having you back on in March. So I'll announce when we get that date. Kristen saying, great show tonight. Thanks everybody for watching. Another person is so interesting. Thanks, Pete and Rocky. Yeah, come find out. Go find out. March 24th through 26th, and check out hauntedoregoncity.com as well. Again, Rocky, thanks. I'll be off next week from the show, and then I'll be back on February 7th with special guest psychic medium Jackie Campbell, and then there's the Western Washington Investigators of Paranormal Science. Thanks for checking in, guys. And these guys have a podcast called Because It's Paranormal, and they've got a couple episodes out. So look up on Facebook and look up Because It's Paranormal. Check out their new podcast. So these folks, Lance and Tammy, I'll be having on at the end of February for my show. I think on February 28th, last day of the month. So got some fun guests coming up, but I'll be off next week. Back with psychic medium Jackie Campbell, February 7th. And Holly saying thanks. Yep. No problem on the shout outs. People comment, you get shout outs. That's how it works. But Rocky, get some rest, get some peace. Peace of mind. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. But I look forward to having you back on in March. And to everybody out there, be real, be present, be there for the ones you're with, and hug everyone else virtually for a little while longer. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, on WLTK-DB.com. And let's see if I can get us out of the show. Here we go. Thanks, Rocky. Take care, everybody.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.